Thank you. Welcome to this meeting of the Council. I'm Councillor Liz Malvisi, Chair of Babergh District Council, and I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. Before the meeting commences, there will be a minute's silence to remember our former colleague, previous Babergh Councillor David Rose, who has recently passed away. David Rose was the ward member for Holbrook for 16 years between 2003 and 2019. He was Vice Chair of the Council between 2008 and 2009 and sat on several committees including Overview and Scrutiny, Joint Audit and Standards, Babergh Audit, Planning and Staff Joint Consultative Committee. A celebration of David's life will be held on Friday, 27th September at 11 a.m. at All Saints Church in Holbrook. On behalf of the Council, I pass on your deepest condolences to David's family and friends, and I ask members to be upstanding for the minute's silence. I'd like to remind you all of a few domestic arrangements. Toilets are situated outside the meeting room, opposite the stairs. Cold water is also available in the breakout area outside the meeting room. If the fire alarm should sound, please leave the meeting room by following the fire exit signs and meet on the Ipswich Town Football Club training pitch. Do not re-enter the building until you are told it is safe to so do. Please switch off all mobile phones or turn them to silent. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you'll be deemed by the Council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting, you are also consenting to being filmed by the Council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. I now move to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor John Nunn, Councillor Daniel Potter, Councillor Michael Holt, Councillor Stephen Plum, Councillor Mark Newman and Councillor Peter Beer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, are there any declarations of interest? No? Thank you. We move. Sorry, Councillor Maybury?
Thank you. This relates to a paper that's coming forward. Is the monitoring officer giving dispensation to us all, including those who have a financial contract with Babergh, to do with the waste, collection of brown bin waste? I can't see in the paperwork that we have, but will I have dispensation or can I go home early, please?
There's a dispensation. Yes, there is a dispensation. Okay, thank you. Nobody else? Move on to paper BC 2414 to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of July, and this is for accuracy only. Are there any issues with accuracy? Councillor Maybury?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've just got to turn the pages over so I can see where it is. But I am looking at, sorry, we'll keep going. Right, page 14, under 27. First of all, 27.2 is down as 21.2. Okay. And also, and I queried this, but because in the apologies section, we have apologies from Councillor Ward, and I did question that, that Councillor Ward joined us by video link, but I think under what should be 27.2, we should add that, I'm going to read it out how I think it should read. The Chair invited Councillor Ward, Cabinet Member for Finance, Assets and Investments, to introduce the report on video link. I think those three last words need to be added. Thank you.
That's very much.
Thank you, Councillor Maybury. We will amend that minutes.
Any other issues with accuracy? No, therefore can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Owen and a seconder. Councillor Bryn. All those in favour?
That's carried.
Carried, yeah. I now bring you to paper BC 2415. I'd like members to know that in taking on the chairmanship for the second year, I have added a charity to my charities, and I have decided to also support the, in the absence of Babergh seeing fit to give them some money, I am supporting the Kurnos Centre in Sudbury. Because I think it's quite a good fit with the men's shed anyhow. Before I pass on to the leader, I would like to draw your attention to something that I attended at the beginning of this month. I went over to Haverhill to receive the Knife Angel. This is a national sculpture designed by members of the British Ironworks Centre, and it's designed to bring awareness of violence. Violence in every single shape and form. And of course, a knife represents a very obvious violent threat. The sculpture stands 27 feet tall, and it's made of 100,000 knives. 43 police areas helped to collect the knives, and the total collected exceeded 1 million, which is quite a salutary statistic. The knives needed to be cleaned and sterilized because they bore the blood of their victims. So in constructing the National Monument, it must have been quite a harrowing experience for those doing it. But it's not only a striking work of art, but it's a powerful symbol of hope, peace and healing. And the installation in Haverhill is the first time that the Knife Angel has appeared in either Suffolk, Cambridge or Norfolk, Cambridgeshire. It currently stands in Market Square, Haverhill, and I thoroughly recommend that you take a trip over and you have a look at it. Because when we received it, on the 4th of September, and Councillor Owen was there with me, people were visibly moved. And I'm not talking about people that belong to Haverhill, but people just standing there looking at what this statue represented. Knife crime is on the increase. If you can visit it and garner some information about it, you may be able to circulate that through parish councils in your area, or schools in your area, or youth clubs in your ward. It is there till the 30th of September, so please visit. Thank you very much. Councillor Saw, would you like to make your announcements?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by welcoming Councillor Laura Smith to Cabinet as Portfolio Member for Thriving Communities, and also to thank Councillor Daniel Potter for his sterling contribution under 2 portfolios since we took office. I'd like to start by talking about devolution, a topic that has caused a lot of attention in the local media recently. I'm sure we were all heartened by the Minister of State's remarks that district councils should be handed a greater role in devolution talks. He'd had concerns previously that we had been left out in the cold. And of course, we welcome the government's commitment to give back power to local communities in all parts of England. It seems to me the key to devolution is to empower local leaders who know their places best to respond to each area's unique circumstances. We play a vital role in creating jobs, building homes, improving economic opportunity, addressing skills shortages and tackling inequalities. Now, I know that the leader of Suffolk County Council has been very much disappointed by the rejection of the Suffolk devolution deal, but it is quite clear when looking at what the government has said that it doesn't want to see any white space. It would like to see larger areas for devolution, and it's very much committed to the mayoral system. Now, I'm not particularly enamoured of the mayoral system myself, but I am, above all things, a pragmatist. And so therefore, I think it is only right that as district councils in Suffolk, we engage with the leader of the county to come up with a solution to devolution that meets the government's requirements and also our own. Now, the government says it wants to see devolution in all places and to empower the local leaders who know their places best to play a vital role. Now, I'm totally in favour of that, but I am a little concerned when I look at what the government is asking us to do as regards planning. It is quite clear that the government has an enormously ambitious target of creating 1.5 million homes by the end of this Parliament. That would require them building over 300,000 a year. The last time that was done was during the premiership of Harold Wilson in the 60s. And what was the key to that? The key to it was social housing. Without social housing, we cannot make these targets. People often ask me why there are so few meetings of the Planning Committee. Well, there are so few meetings of the Planning Committee because developers are not bringing forward schemes. Now, obviously, this is due to the economy, but we also know that there are over 1 million permissions outstanding in the country. There are 4,500 in Babergh alone. So asking us to build 763 houses a year, or give planning permission to that, is a big ask. The key to it is social housing, and I was very much pleased to attend the launch of the report along with 105 other councils that signed it, securing the future of council houses. And the key, as I've said, to building houses is the government giving us funding to work with other providers, but we have to have this housing, and affordable housing at that. It is quite clear that our housing, our HRA is broken. We have enormous task ahead of us to renovate our housing, to maintain it, and to bring it up to energy efficiency standards. I see today that the Secretary of State, Ed Miliband, has said that all council houses should be brought up to EPCC standard. I totally agree, but we need the money to do it. I would also like to update members on the closure of the Kingfisher Leisure Centre pool in Sudbury. As members are aware, the pool closed on Friday the 23rd of August after it appeared a glass panel above the pool had been damaged. On investigation, we learnt that that was indeed the case, but unfortunately we also discovered that additional work was needed to the other roof panels. The complexity and scale of this job, coupled with time required for the supply of specialist replacement glass, has meant a longer closure. This has been estimated to take at least 12 weeks. All other facilities at Kingfisher, including the gym and sauna, remain open as usual. We're very sorry to all pool users for this disruption, but people's safety is our first concern, and we will reassure them that we're working as quickly as we can to get it reopened. Abbeycroft, our partners who run the leisure centre, are putting on some great alternative options. Anyone with membership can automatically use other facilities in Hadley and Bury, and Abbeycroft have moved as many swim classes as they can to Hadley. I would also like to talk about the big weekend. The ballot is now open for our first ever big weekend, in which local residents can win prizes by entering a free ballot to look at our culture, leisure and visitor attractions. You can enter the ballot by Googling Heart of Suffolk Big Weekend, and the draw will be open until Monday 30th of September. Please spread the word. And finally, I would like to pay tribute to Citizens Advice Bureau, which celebrated its 85th anniversary earlier this month. I wasn't aware, actually, that the day after the Second World War was declared was actually the day that Citizens Advice came into being. It was rather a unfortunate set of events, but they do extraordinary work. They help our residents in many different ways. All, at the moment, they say that every case they deal with ends up having 5 simultaneous issues that they have to deal with. So their volunteers do tremendous work, and I'm absolutely proud that they are one of our strategic partners. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, I don't know whether I missed it, but you mentioned that Sally Davis has now joined the Cabinet. Oh, Laura Smith has joined the, sorry, Laura Smith has joined the Cabinet. And Daniel thought, has there been a reconfiguration of portfolios?
Councillor Smith took over Councillor Potter's portfolio, which was Thriving Communities.
Ah, right, okay. So there's been no change. Thank you. To receive notification of petitions in accordance with council procedure rules.
None received.
Thank you. You may as well stand up, keep standing. Questions by the public in accordance with council procedure rules.
None received.
and questions by councillors in accordance with council procedure rules?
None received, Chair.
Thank you very much, thanks. We'll now move on to paper BC 2416, Simpler Recycling, Recycling and Refuse Collections. I'd like to invite Councillor Saw, Cabinet Member for People and Place, to produce paper BC 2416 and to move the recommendations in the report. Councillor Saw.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to actually start this with a startling fact. Only 9% of the plastics that have been generated in the world have ever been recycled. And when we see the state of our beaches and our rivers, we can probably quite understand why that has happened. The last government put forward plans in the Environment Act 2021 to require the same materials to be collected and recycled throughout England. I'm not particularly keen on the term simplified recycling because actually it is a challenge. The simplicity of it is actually consistency, that all over England councils will be collecting waste, and they will be collecting food waste in particular. If you travel anywhere in this country, you will know that currently there's no consistency as to what gets recycled. Every area has its own rules. But what we do know is recycling rates have stalled over the years. The average for England is 44%. Babergh is around 40 to 42%, which isn't good enough. The new recycling regime is focused on minimising waste and driving up recycling rates. I don't believe that there is any reason to regard this negatively. This is a positive thing. In actual fact, by doing this, we can divert over 58% of waste, which is now food, glass, metal, plastic, Tetra Pak, into recycling. 58%. But as well as that, we're actually increasing combined bin capacity. So people are worried about taking bins away. We are not taking bins away. We are focusing on the weekly food collection, but we've already discussed this in council. What we are now discussing is the mode of operation that we are going to use for the rest of the waste. Yes, this is a statutory requirement, but it's one that we should grasp with open hands. So, the material in what is currently your black bin will be substantially reduced, and we will be on our way to reaching the target for England, which is to reach 60% recycling by 2030. The previous government had agreed new burdens funding to help councils with this change, but there are some issues, although it's 18 months away, that we have to address today. Not just us, but other districts in Suffolk, together with county. You will have probably read that East Suffolk has already discussed this at Cabinet, so has West Suffolk. We have discussed it in Cabinet, and we made a recommendation to go for 3 weekly recycling. But we also wanted to bring this to council for fuller discussion. This is not going to be the first or last conversation we are going to have about this. I promise you. There will be other papers coming to council for discussion, and we should know by November what the government's treatment will be of extended producer recycling. These are snappy terms. Extended producer recycling is the producers of packaging will pay for it to be recycled. The previous government's hope, and I'm sure the current government's hope, is that that would spur innovation in packaging innovation. So, for example, in 2027, we will be asked to recycle film. You know, the film that's over your perspex, trays, etc., etc. You can't recycle that at the moment. But we're hoping that there will be innovation to enable that to happen. Manufacturers of packaging will have to label items as recyclable or non-recyclable and pay the full costs of dealing with the waste they produce under the EPR proposals. Companies are already supplying data as to what they do, and councils will receive these fees to cover the cost of collection and processing. Initially, this is going to be done by formula. I'm sure that actually the Director of Operations could wax lyrical on this subject if called on. Doesn't look very enthusiastic though. All councils, all Suffolk districts and borough councils are working together to find the best solutions to these changes. We expect to reduce emissions, put more green energy into the grid, and with the recycling of food waste, improve the soil for farmers and growers. Officers have been to see councils that are already engaged in 3 weekly recycling. We have been visited by RAP, who have said that we are advanced in our arrangements, so that's good. And I know that when you mess with people's bins, you do at your peril. There is nothing that gets people more agitated than change about waste collections. But we are absolutely determined to ensure that the service carries on at the high standards it is today. We have very few complaints about our service, and that it is modelled and followed, that we model it, that we test it, and that we talk to people, and that we also, together with our partners, have the biggest public education campaign we can. I want to assure members that when this change comes, there will be no resident in the district who doesn't know it's coming. I would be happy to take further questions. I know that the difference between 3 weekly and 2 weekly concerns people, but we do currently have special arrangements for people who have medical waste issues, for people with young children. We produce smaller bins for people who have less space in their front gardens. We give people sacks, we give people boxes. We're doing that now with the current arrangements. We will continue to do that, and we very much hope that people will recognise that this is the right thing to do. It's the best thing for the environment, and as I was recently told by a 6-year-old, recycling is fun. We shall see, but I commend this to you, and I suggest that 3 weekly recycling is the way to go. I'd be happy to take any questions, and I'm sure the officers would too.
Thank you, Councillor. So before we take questions, could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ward. Now we move to questions. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. I'd like to ask if there's going to be collaboration with the Housing Department, especially regarding antisocial behaviour on places such as our council estates. We currently have issues already. We're working really hard to regenerate some of our estates, and that's very difficult when everybody leaves their bins out on the streets. These are regularly kicked over. There's a lot of antisocial behaviour. The children think it's hilarious to knock the bins over before they're collected. And I wanted to know what mitigation there's going to be to monitor the effect on our estates. It also states in point 9.5 that one of the ways where this will be mitigated for is that they're saying that you're going to remove the recycling bins where levels of contamination are repeatedly high and residents have shown no likelihood of engaging with services. Now, this has been tried before, and all it led to was a huge amount of fly tipping, people putting unsuitable rubbish in other people's bins, because all the bins go out together. So I'd just really like to ask whether you're going to be working with housing to try and mitigate some of these issues.
I will answer this question first of all and then pass it over to officers. I recognise that this is an issue, and we are very much committed to improving the environment of our estates, and I am sure that public realm and housing work closely together now, and I will now pass it over to the Director of Operations or to give a more robust answer.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, in short, we will continue to work with the housing team, and very happy to do that, and starting to make some positive progress, particularly in public realm, but we see that as a role in waste as well. Like we said before, we don't tend to have too many complaints, but that doesn't mean to say that problems aren't out there, and we do get that, and we totally accept that. We do have the option of removing bins, but we're not trying to put across that that is going to be something that we're jumping to do. As Suffolk-wide officers are talking together about how we could have a county-wide policy on enforcement of bins and what we actually do there, so that there's more consistency and strength in working together, and then when you move around the place you actually know across the patch what's happening there as well. What we're looking to do today is to move forward, because we've got 18 months until this starts, and we're not going to waste that time. We're going to use that time conducting audits of all of the areas where we have to already provide adapted collections. We operate sack rounds at the moment. We operate collections out of communal bin stores which are accessed securely, and we have slightly bespoke arrangements already, and we also monitor the contamination rates of different rounds, which does vary by round to round, so we can see where we've got challenges around recycling. And whilst there are statutory requirements for collecting food weekly, that doesn't mean to say that we can't adapt around there in terms of the type of bins and the areas that we use and how we collect it. So fair point made, and we'll definitely look at it.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Sorry. Thank you. I'd just like to ask the Director of Operations really the same question that I asked him at Cabinet a couple of weeks ago. As the leader has said, there are concerns about the move from 2 weekly to 3 weekly residual collection. Excuse me. Now, the report does clearly identify that there are benefits to a 3 weekly residual collection, but can the Director of Operations provide more detail of the evidence for these benefits that UNOMIA has provided to the Suffolk Waste Partnership, please?
Yes, happy to do that. So UNOMIA were commissioned in 2022. UNOMIA are a consultancy of engineers and waste consultants that work across the country with many local authorities. They were commissioned by the Suffolk Waste Partnership to carry out a waste collections and disposal options analysis, and produced a range of options that would work with the resources and waste strategy. So the main benefit of the 3 weekly residual waste collections is a recycling benefit. Overall, evidence tends to suggest that there is 5% additional waste is recycled. People are encouraged by the reduced frequency of the residual waste collection alongside food being collected on a weekly basis. That helps to nudge behaviour shift towards more recycling, and authorities that have put that method in have noted the additional recycling rate. So those figures there, the additional 5% was brought in by Eunomia from their experience working with authorities across the country. And of course, any waste that is recycled means it's waste that's not going to the energy from waste plant, which is great that it produces energy, but it's not so great that it produces carbon emissions. So there's an associated reduction in carbon emission savings as well.
Thank you. Councillor Horan?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, we notice this paper is for endorsing, so we obviously realise we're setting it on a trial and it will come back for more than a few tweaks, I would think. I just want to query point 4.5 and 4.6 in the report. It's deemed that the producers of cardboard will pay a tax up front to deal with it later. I'm just wondering, is that the right time to intervene? Because the first thing they will do is just pass it on to the customer, isn't it? So the whole cost of everything will possibly go up several times. Maybe the people who are actually using the boxes might be a better target. You know, places like, or firms like Amazon are renowned for putting a box within a box and within another box. And they are probably the main contributors to the waste stream there. So maybe intervention there would be more subtle and more fitting. The other concern is, could there be an opt-out?
Do you have a question? Because we're not in debate, we're questioning.
Oh, well, that was a question. Wouldn't it be better to intervene later?
Right.
That wasn't the question.
You.
I'm sorry, it did come at the end. And my second question is it possible to be an opt-out clause in some of this? Because not every person living down the bottom of a lane wants umpteen lorries coming down, sort of maybe damaging the verges. And it's a real issue on some of the estates as well. Can people choose not to have a little part of this? You've already said that people who live in flats with small landing could have a different bin and a different way of dealing it. So that's two concerns that I have. Maybe a tweak on both of them would be appropriate as we move along, Chairman. Yes, they were good questions,
Councillor.
Chairman. Sorry about the order I put them in.
No, not at all. Councillor Owen? Answered. Okay. Do you want to respond, Councillor Saw? I'm busy hoovering up.
I thought I might. The extended producer responsibility is set by government. There's already a scheme administrator in place. They will be reporting in November as to the formula they will use. I think there is a point to what you say, Councillor Horan, but I think you should also think about these companies have to deal with public opinion. We're all very much fed up with getting the small package in the Russian doll Amazon box, but extended producer responsibility is government mandated. It will be interesting to see how it works out and how it affects companies' behaviour. And opt-outs, well, in a way we do have opt-outs because we do respond to people's different circumstances. But I'm afraid that we are running a universal service here. And we run a really good service, and I think we should commend our officers for and our employees for the work we do, for the work they do. So I can't actually see, at the moment, we have 5% of our residents who have special circumstances. Now, we're perfectly willing to talk to anybody who has issues about this, and this applies to our new recycling regime. Director of Operations speaks.
Yeah, I won't add any more comments on the extended producer responsibility, just about the vehicles. Obviously, The change in vehicles that's being proposed, it's not in connection to the paper that we're discussing tonight, but indirectly is connected via the additional food waste vehicles. That fleet of vehicles is proposed to be a fleet of 7.5 tonne vehicles. They don't have power takeoff units or bin lifters in the noisy way that the other vehicles have, so they should be less noisy and much smaller. And the situation with waste collections is we're treating it as a system as well. So it is a price to pay, those additional vehicles coming and collecting, but the overall system benefits are there. The carbon emissions are reduced because that waste is being treated through an anaerobic digestion facility. The treatment emissions far outweigh the vehicle emissions of what's vehicles driving around. So yes, an additional vehicle turning up on bin collection day. No, I say bin collection day because it is our intention under option C to have a single day where your bins are collected on, and not to introduce a complicated rota with bins being collected on different days of the week. Will bring about those emission savings and benefit the environment and the system, and that's in one of the appendices.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm afraid I'm a bit confused. I'm just wondering why this is actually here. Are we actually making a decision on this, or I was under the impression that Cabinet had already decided on this? So either this is something that should come to full council as a full council key decision, or it's a Cabinet decision. Officers make decisions, Cabinet makes decisions, and full council makes decisions. I don't understand this idea of endorsing and considering. We don't rubber stamp decisions that Cabinet makes. We certainly weren't asked to rubber stamp the decision made on parking charges, so why this one? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
It's come to council because it's an issue that affects every household. It's also a decision, we brought it to council because we wanted to hear your views and take any questions that you have. There is a meeting tomorrow of the Suffolk Waste Partnership where any issues that you bring up will be taken and discussed.
Surely if Cabinet wanted to hear our opinions on the matter, it should have happened before the decision was made, not after.
This is a procedure that all of the districts are going through. That's going to Cabinet and then it's going to council. This is a big decision. It's going to take 18 months. We want to make sure that councillors feel comfortable with it so that they can talk to their residents, brief their residents and parish councils. That is the reason why it's come to council.
To quote your colleague, Councillor Carter, I don't care what other councils are doing. Why is it not a decision that's been brought correctly, procedurally, to full council rather than Cabinet and then asking our opinions afterwards?
So I note that there are very few members of the opposing party opposite. I presume that they are of the same opinion as you, that they are not particularly interested in the way that we put this process out. Other councillors appear to be more involved and engaged, and I'm totally happy, as are the officers, to take as many questions as councillors would wish to put to us.
Councillor Weimark. I thought you said your question had been answered. Oh, sorry. I'll put my hearing aids in next time.
Okay.
Right, mine's just a quick question. I'm just going to ask you a question that you answered me. So it's just a quite straightforward question. The 3 weekly bin collection, will that start at the same time that the recycling comes in, please? I just want it so it's out in the air, please.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Having waited so long to ask your question, you couldn't hear my answer. I do beg your pardon. Yes. Who's next? Does the Director of Operations have anything else to add to that?
No.
Have we concluded that line of questioning? Yes. Now can we move to Councillor Parker?
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Councillor Saul, for a very clear opening presentation. Chair, I've got a couple of questions, but if you would indulge me, could I just refer you to a press release that is on gov.uk? Just want to read out a paragraph, if I can, Chair, in order to give context to the question, if that would be all right. So on gov.uk, on the press release, it was issued on the 9th of May of this year from the government of the day. It says here quite clearly, additionally, the government is supporting more frequent and comprehensive bin collections. A minimum backstop means councils will be expected to collect black bin waste at least fortnightly alongside weekly food waste collections. This will stop the trend seen outside England towards 3 weekly or 4 weekly bin collections. So that's a statement that came from the government of the day, but it's not made reference to at all within the report. So clearly there's lots of reference made to the fact that we're moving to 3 weekly, but I'm surprised that if we've conducted all of this research within our own council, that's not been reflected, I would have thought, by the government of the day as well. So my question really is to Councillor Saw. You mentioned in your presentation, Councillor Saw, that this will not be the last conversation we'll have about this, and I'm pleased to hear that. Will the subject of 2 or 3 weekly collections, will they form part of those ongoing conversations, please?
Thank you, Councillor Parker. I think the issue here is timing. If we look at May, this was when the government were making pronouncements about recycling. I can quite remember the Prime Minister's view about not having 7 bins. This was something that he was very keen on. This was not statutory guidance. That was, if I could be so bold, a political remark rather than statutory guidance. The key to this is, if we go to 3 weekly, our recycling rate will be improved by 5%. That is what's driving us. And the Director of Operations can't wait to get into this.
Okay. Yes. I mean, I think the key point is that the guidance isn't legally enforceable. So there's a number of authorities already that collect waste 3 weekly and collect waste 4 weekly. And obviously, advice from governments changes over time, and that advice is being reassessed, no doubt, at the moment by officers of DEFRA as well. And that advice may change in due course. A certain Mr. Pickles had advice a number of years ago on bins to be collected weekly, and we'll be moving back to that and different things as well. So we have seen subsequent changes. There's also, as well as the statutory guidance, there was also derogation for councils to be able to collect their waste in a fully commingled way, just after all of the local authorities in the country had spent the last few years, and the Environment Act had been formed to actually have source separation to produce high quality commodities and materials, which is demanded by the industry that is actually recycling those materials. So without wanting to pass political judgment on it, we've taken advice as a group of officers across Suffolk, and we're content that it's not legally binding, that advice on the guidance. So we're happy with the proposal that is being put forward. And of course, if some advice comes into play that is legally binding, we have an option to change and to say that. But one problem I would point out as well is if you take the view that to continue with 2 weekly residual waste, if you take a view to continue with 2 weekly residual waste collections, bringing in 3 weekly residual waste collections after you've gone through with these changes becomes much more problematic and much more challenging, because the behaviours become established and you have to go through the same process again in the same cycle, of which, you know, we're totally upfront and honest. Crews have to get used to the changes, and there's some service failures over the first couple of collection cycles, and you have to go through that process and change and all the communications effort again, and you have the public saying, well, why are you changing our bins again? And it's something we want to do, you know, very infrequently.
Thank you. Councillor Wyman.
Thank you, Chair. A slightly less impactful point that my colleague made, but nevertheless I think it's quite valuable. In Councillor Saw's opening address, she talked to...
You say Councillor Barber made a comment. Because we're in question time.
We are, and there will be a question. Councillor Saw referenced 58%, which included food, glass and Tetra Pak. Well, in my bin, there's no food and there's no glass. There might be the odd Tetra Pak, and it will certainly be less than 58% of the overall content of my particular bin. That leads me on to the question that within communities, and I think the Chair's also made reference to this several months ago, many of our communities collect glass and generate revenue from it, and by us collecting glass at the doorstep, this will clearly have an impact on revenue streams to some extent into our communities. And that leads on to the broader point of, and again, commend the point that Councillor Saul made in relation to this is not the last conversation, but we do need to think far more clearly and accurately about how our communities can work together for centralised collection in terms of the communities that feel able to do so without there being a doorstep delivery. So it would be nice to think that as time goes by, our plans will evolve and we'll look at better ways of doing this. And the question is the development of the process, really, in terms of this won't be the last position we're in, and we will get to a position where we can potentially look at an opt-out clause for residents.
Who's next? Councillor Davies? Oh, sorry, Councillor Saw, do you wish to respond? Oh, no, it's Sally Davies.
Oh, yes, me, Davies. Which one? Go on, Helen. Okay. Thank you. It gets confusing when there's so many Davises around. My question is quite a minute one. In 2.5, you mention a reusable box and bag or communal bins can be provided. Could we tweak the offering from another large plastic bin, which went down really badly at my parish councils when I told them about this, to automatically offering a bin or a box or a bag? And also, could you just clarify if the boxes and bins are sealed when they're put out, because otherwise I foresee Mr. Fox going in and trying to get stuff.
Councillor Saw.
I think I am going to refer to the Director of Operations on these two matters. I do take Councillor Wyman's point about villages and communities collecting glass. That happens in all the villages in my ward, and I do recognise that it is something that they are concerned about, and we will. I think it is quite complicated to have people opting in and opting out, but it is something that I know all districts in Suffolk are dealing with.
Yeah, on the 2 points really. So glass, yeah, we are aware of the current system, obviously, and how that operates. The uncomfortable truth is the glass collection service operates at a deficit, so we're effectively subsidising as a council village halls and parish councils, which I'm not passing comment on. I'm just saying that's the fact of what we're dealing with. So we have extended the glass collection service contract across Suffolk for Suffolk Authority so that it runs up into and beyond the implementation date for simpler recycling, and we have 18 months to consider that, and that's reasonable suggestion there as well. In terms of the bin box opt-in, opt-out type scenario, I think in general we want to have a standard service offering because obviously having a complete selection of choice can be quite challenging to roll out as well, which is a really logistical big challenge. But on saying that, we have got a successful record of working really empathetically with households on the doorstep, and we realise space, convenience, all of those parts play an issue, depending on age of family, stage that people are at in their life. They produce different amounts of waste and recycling and require different size containers. So that is something that we're mindful to trying to adapt to and how we can support.
Thank you. Councillor Busby.
Thank you. For your Appendix E, page 44, which shows the collection patterns for options B and C. Just to clarify, we keep referring to the residual waste being collected every 3 weeks, moving to 3 weeks. The blue bin will be collected every 3 weeks as well, as will the green bin. Are we happy that, I mean, the blue bin is pretty full now after 2 weeks, and we're allowing, I know we're taking some things out, like cardboard and paper, but we're also putting glass in and Tetra Pak in and other stuff as well, I guess. Are we happy that the blue bin will cope with a 3 weekly collection?
Yes, we're happy with the breakdown between those constituent streams of the recycling. There's two reasons for breaking it down that way. One is to break down the actual volumes and the volumetrics, and cardboard, as people have mentioned already, has been going up with the Amazon effect, and hopefully the legislation will start to control that. But you can't deny there are more home deliveries and more cardboard coming through the front door. So the other thing is splitting the waste stream, the recycling streams in that way is an efficient and effective way for the recycling to be dealt with at the materials recycling centre. So one of the real reasons for pushing on with this process is because we're going to have about 8,000 tonnes of recycler in Babergh, and it's got to go somewhere. And the MRF that's operated by Biffa at Great Blakenham needs to be reconfigured so that it has glass screening, so that it can take glass in the stream there, and also be reconfigured so that on the floor it can accept the fibres, the paper and card, which can then go straight to the mill. That involves a lot of complicated changes there. Reciting their offices, going through planning and a process, ordering in machinery to deliver this and make this work. So we need to give that operator there, Biffa, time to make those changes and time to put in place contingency arrangements during the changeover period. It's quite a big logistical operation, which we're working on, the Suffolk Waste Partnership and the County Councils leading on and supporting us with.
Thank you. Councillor Busby.
Picking up kind of that point, I'm just concerned about glass going into a blue bin and then being sorted at the plant. At the moment, I think it's sorted by hand, or it used to be when I had my visit, whether it would still be resorted. I mean, surely you're going to get broken glass in this blue bin. Is that not going to be an unsafe product?
The glass won't be sorted by hand. The glass will be taken out by a mechanical screening process. I think there will end up being less hand sorting going on with the reconfigured MRF than what there is currently, significantly less. Taking the fibres out, the paper and card will simplify the process. And there's discussions also about robotic optical pickers coming in as well, which is now starting to become much more recognised in the waste sortation industry.
Councillor Sally Davis.
You talked about learning from other
authorities that have a 3-week residual waste collection. There's still going to be dog feces and nappies in the residual bin. What is the experience of other authorities with keeping them for 3 weeks?
Yeah, thank you. They managed to cope, I would say, in summary. We've talked about where there's exceptions of large amounts of waste. They've worked with residents to come up with solutions, but in general they have coped because of the reduced capacity. By taking the other waste streams out, you free up that capacity, so yeah, it does work.
So it doesn't smell after 3 weeks is basically my question.
Yeah, I wondered if this question might pop up. The reality is all the research has been carried out by RAP, leading the country down the route of separate food waste recycling. Part of it was about disposable, part of it was about it being acceptable because that fraction of waste is removed from the residual bin. That's the waste that tends to putrefy and rot and create odour, whereas the other waste streams, which are of valid concern, is undoubtedly, without wanting to go into the details, it's quite clear that those waste streams smell when they're first created, but they tend to smell less over time versus the food, which tends to smell more over time, according to my research.
Councillor Grandon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got 3 short questions, if I may. In Hudley, like a number of other wards, we have quite a lot of terraced houses that at the moment have bags which they bring through the house and put out on collection day. So now they'll probably need 3 bags, I think. Will they be different colours to kind of colour code how they're going to, you know, at the moment it's quite easy because they just have probably 2. How will it work in future for the people in terraced houses or similar situation to that, where they currently have bags supplied by Babergh? They'll need a kind of colour coding system, I would have thought. And I have a couple more questions to ask after this, please.
I'll answer that one firstly. Yeah, the authorities that we've spoken to tend to operate with a recyclable box and a recyclable bag and split the 2 recycling streams that way, but we might also, as is suggested, we could also have different coloured bags as well. We had an interesting workshop with RAP last week as well. They commented that some of the London authorities where they've implemented weekly food waste collection already, they have communal collection points outside as well. We've converted pillar bins in there which can take the food waste there to take that waste from out of the house where there's nowhere to store that waste stream there as well. So there are options, and that's the type of work that we'll be looking to complete over the 18-month lead-in period.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing updates on that then. Thank you. Then the food waste boxes that we'll have in our house. 2 points about that. I hope they're going to look attractive and be a good colour that will fit in with people's decor. And then secondly, linings for them. Will Babergh be providing those, or, you know, how will that work?
I'm not personally on the food caddies subcommittee, but some colleagues are. We're looking to purchase food caddies and the food bins together across Suffolk, so we can achieve some economies of scale and prices. Colour to be revealed, but I understand they were looking at a grey colour, which I'm reliably informed is the current vogue that will fit in with most kitchen styles. And from that perspective, yeah. So we're happy to, you know, we will provide updates on that. And in terms of the food caddy liners, there is research that shows implementing effective food waste services where you initially provide caddy liners leads to higher adoption rates and higher yield and higher set out. So it's something that we'll definitely be doing. The economics of whether we will be able to sustain doing that forevermore or not will have to be looked at, but we would certainly be looking to initially provide caddy liners to make sure the scheme gets off to a really successful start.
Thank you, that sounds excellent. My final question is glass. Quite often, unfortunately, I break glass. And currently, you know, I might break glass as I'm putting it in the dishwasher or just drop it or whatever. Currently, I would sweep it up, put it in a carrier bag and put it in the black bin so that it's, you know, relatively safe and so on for all users. What would happen in that situation? And, you know, it does happen to everyone. What would happen in that situation going forward with the new system? What would be done about broken glass, which I presume you wouldn't want, you know, would you want it in a carrier bag or would you want it loose in the new glass bin?
It's not a scenario that we've considered as yet, but I think we'd probably leave it for the householder to make the choice on what's the safest way to either dispose of that glass into the residual waste stream or to recycle it if they felt it was safe into the other collection stream. Operators don't tend to touch the recycling anyway. It's emptied from in that case, glass would be either in a plastic box or a plastic bin directly into the vehicle.
Thank you, Councillor Grandin. Councillor Clover.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. With food waste, it would appear that we're trying to hit targets here, but how does this square with an education programme where people with gardens are invited to use their composting in their own garden there, which would save all if it's about carbon emissions, then clearly that's got to run step by step in line. Thank you.
I totally agree with you, Councillor Clover. We would very much like to encourage home composting, and I think that is one of the educational elements that we're going to put into this launch of the new service. But we do recognise that there are some residents who do not have that capability. But we will be encouraging it, and I totally agree with you. It is very important. And if we could encourage more people to do it, so much the better.
Sorry, just to add to that, we already operate a subsidised composting bin scheme across Suffolk, and we'll continue to do that. And there'll still be a waste hierarchy supported, where if people can reduce their waste or recycle it or compost it at home, then that will be supported. It'll be lovely to think that this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and we don't need a food waste collection service in the future. Evidence hasn't pointed in that direction over a number of years that councils have been collecting food waste, but hopefully that's the intention, that it points out the amount of waste that's being wasted and helps individuals to reduce their costs with that.
Now, I've allocated an hour, and I've still got 2 councillors who wish to ask questions. So can I ask you all who are left, that's yourself, Councillor Clover, Councillor McLaren and Councillor Maybury, to make your questions precise. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just very quickly, it's following up by Councillor Busby's comment, and I think it was Councillor Parker's, that if they're going to, as you say, with a system where you're putting glass in as well as paper, then surely, and it's already full, as we're acknowledging, wouldn't it be better to have also these central points where glass can still be, you can take it to a centre where it can be deposited?
I mean, the short answer is it would be fantastic if all waste could be collected to communal points, a la a scheme that you might have in France, and residents transport their waste around to these centralised points. But we don't have that in this country, and the Environment Act, which is law effectively, doesn't support that. So curbside collection of glass is mandated in the Act, and all councils are going to have to collect glass from the curbside. So the choice really is about whether to duplicate provision of glass collection at local bring sites and pay that subsidised cost of doing that, or whether there's a more effective way of supporting those groups that have been benefiting from that.
Thank you. Just, if your bin's full, what do you do?
So, share a neighbour's bin, hold that waste until the following week when it's not full. It's only going to be full at any particular point of time or occasion because of a special circumstance or something that's happened to fill that up. As I say, we'll be very empathetic on the doorstep, and we understand some larger families require larger bins, and we already provide those bins, larger bins as well. So that's remains a possibility.
People are popping their hands up. I'm going to Councillor Maybury, and then I'm going to Councillor McLaren, and I think Councillor Parker has put his arm up. No, Councillor Grandon, you wish to have the final say then? Okay, Councillor Maybury.
Thank you, Chairman. I will be as succinct as I can. First of all, to answer Councillor Grandon's query about the kitchen caddies. Mine is white with a green lining. You'll be fine. The question that worries me to start off with is, if we are going to reduce all our residue waste, currently that waste goes to Great Blakenham and it's turned into energy for, I think it's 30,000 homes, but I'm sure somebody will correct me. So what are we going to do about that? Because surely there's going to be a knock-on effect of that. My second question is, those with mobility issues, particularly those who live in buildings that don't have any access to the rear, how are the operatives going to help with that? That's the second question. The third is, you didn't answer whether the boxes, if they are issued, will have lids. Lastly, I'm going to say, what worries me and how are you going to help me to understand this and accept it, that my brown bin cost me in 2018 £50. I now have a brown bin that costs me 65. What's going to happen with that cost? Are you going to keep increasing it because of the other recycling issues and you want more money to pay for what is happening, or what is happening with that? And a comment to end with, Madam Chairman, is if we want to stop all this cardboard that's being delivered to our doors, should we not be encouraging local shopping in our high streets? Thank you.
Right. I think the first question was the waste going to the energy from waste plant. So yeah, that waste currently goes to the energy from waste plant. It costs Suffolk County Council in excess of £100 a tonne, but it does produce electricity, which is useful energy as well, which is good. They will get a reduction in the gate fee because the waste isn't going there, so there's a saving in the system there as well. Most of that waste is going to be going as food waste. That food waste will go into an anaerobic digester, and one of the byproducts of that is biogas. That biogas methane will be injected into the national grid, so the energy will go in there, and the cost for disposal of food waste tonnage will be approximately half when the transport's considered, as well as to what the energy from waste cost is as well. Assisted collections will continue as they are now, and we'll continue to support that. If anyone knows of any challenges around assisted collections, please let us know. The team works really hard on that to make sure that's delivered well, and we totally realise the importance for those service users there as well. There are no plans to have lids on dry recycling. They don't need it, and we don't need additional plastic in the world of creating the lids there. brown bins, they will continue to increase in costs if our costs increase and we can justify full cost recovery, but that'll be a matter of to be agreed as part of the annual fees and charges setting process. And then I think that was the last one.
Can I ask that you ask questions relevant to the papers that are in front of you? We are tasked, or should I say you are tasked, with receiving this paper and basically noting it and making recommendations. There is ample opportunity for councillors and members of the public to attend cabinet meetings. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Very impressive, all of this. In your research with other councils, if this is a successful collection of multi-waste, has it had any impact on local waste collection centres, which a lot of us do visit very frequently? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, that obviously that was never considered as part of our research. Being a county function, you know, that wasn't really something that was interested in us at the time. It was more about the resident experience with the collection service.
(49) and we've only gone through the question section. We still have to go to debate. We have Councillor Grandin, Councillor Rees and Councillor Maybury with, I hope, very specific questions to the paper in front of you. Councillor Maybury.
Thank you very much. Mine is to do with the equality impact, where we're talking about religion. What concerns me is our friends and our residents who are of the Jewish faith, where they may be slightly concerned about having a waste bin that is being collected by persons who have collected waste from other homes. I'm being terribly careful here what I say. But normal circumstances are, when there's an exchange of food, is that the person who is not of the Jewish faith has to have separate clothing and separate gloves. Have we considered that issue, please? Thank you.
The short answer to that is no, we haven't considered that issue. I would need to take advice as to whether it is actually an issue or not. We've obviously had a workshop recently with RAP, and they've been commenting on a number of authorities across the country really as well, and it's not something that's come up as a problem. My initial thoughts are that it's unlikely to be an issue, but we're happy to take it away and look at it.
Councillor Grandin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I might have missed this. It might have already been answered, so forgive me if that's the case. I've got two short questions. Are we keeping the current bins and then having a new one added, or are the current ones being taken away and 3 new ones given to us? That's the first question, please.
Keeping the current bins.
Thank you. The second question is educating the public on the new system. How are we going to do it? And is there a kind of deadline? Well, there must be a kind of deadline. When we all first got our blue bins and had to learn about recycling, there were lots of different ways of us all being educated. It seems quite funny now, but it included also, which was actually the most useful, someone knocking on doors saying, actually, have you thought of pushing it down? Which I hadn't at the time, you know, to get everything in and so on. How is it planned that the public will be educated on everything to do with the new system, please?
Mark, any chance you can go through it in bullet point format?
I was doing it, Madam Chair.
Oh,
Obviously, the communication and the public education campaign is vital for this, and we will be discussing this at the Suffolk Waste Partnership. There will be a full campaign. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to start, but I do recognise that it is important and requires using multimedia and using the same messaging frequently so that people understand it. And I am sure when I explained it to my 6-year-old godson, he assured me that he would be able to explain it to his parents.
Thank you. Director of Operations, have anything to add on this?
Just one word, we're going to do it very thoroughly, I think, and make sure that it is thoroughly and properly planned wherever possible, and this is part of the reason of trying to get all Suffolk authorities as aligned as possible in their decision making. We want to work together, and there is an awful lot of detail that's been shared to us by bodies like RAP and councils that have gone through this before, so we intend to learn from all those challenges and make sure we get it right.
Thank you. Last question from Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to ask one question, a two-part question actually. First of all, what is the location of the anaerobic digester that all this 30 to 40% of food waste that is coming from our residual bins going to be going? What is the location of that anaerobic digester?
We don't know. The contract is out at the moment, and tenders are have been submitted and are being evaluated. So we will have to see where locations come forward. I know the closest location, I think, to the Babergh area is an existing facility in Halstead. But I'm not saying that is going to be where the waste is going. I'm just saying that the contract's out at the moment.
Thank you. The second part of that question is, will the swapping of allegiance, as it were, of waste going from the incinerator to this anaerobic digester occasion any costs to Suffolk County Council for breach of contract with the existing incineration plant, please?
No, that's been checked. There are no issues with the current contract in terms of minimum feedstock tonnage being an issue. It is the situation at the moment where some waste does go into the energy from waste facility from other authorities in Essex, and it might well be the situation in the future where some waste continues to be backhauled on vehicles or otherwise be empty into that plant, which makes the overall plant more efficient and is beneficial towards Suffolk.
Thank you. We now move to debate. You can speak once and for a maximum of 3 minutes. Councillor Parker.
Super job, and I'll be very quick, Chair. I just want to say I will be supporting this paper, but very unusual for me, but I will sort of cross swords a little bit, Madam Chair, because obviously this is being televised and a lot of concerned people are watching this evening, and this is arguably the biggest single change that we're imposing upon our residents for a very long time. We are the people that have to go out to our parish councils and answer these very tricky questions and difficult questions. So we shouldn't be hurried through this process. We should take the amount of time that we need to take to be able to answer these questions.
I hope you don't think that I hurried you.
I think it's just a point that I'd like to make, because I am supportive of the process. But one thing that I would implore my cabinet colleagues to do, if we are going to take people on this journey, if we're going to convince people that moving from 2 weeks to 3 weeks on their collections is a good thing, and I can see the benefits, I can see the reasons, but if we're going to take people on that journey, we must be transparent. And one thing I would really urge my cabinet colleagues transparency and evidence. That's a really important thing. Evidence. Can we evidence some of the stuff that we're backing up? Councillor Rees has made some really good points this evening, actually, and the one about the anaerobic digester, I picked up on it immediately. The director gave a very good and confident response to the question about the anaerobic, so only to find out that actually we don't know where it's going at the moment. So these are the sort of things that we as councillors will be picked up on out in our communities. So I will be supporting, but I would just ask Cabinet to be mindful of process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor McCraw.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm in support of this and have been through its discussion on Cabinet, do excuse me. And the reason is, I've seen this in operation in two authorities, one in Scotland and one in England. Twin Stream, works all the time. I did get my grandchildren to explain it to me in East Lothian, and they were able to very, very clearly know that doesn't go there, Grandad, that goes there. Fine. And it works. I think it's very important for the matter of education. I just point, this has been raised by a few people, that how do we educate people? Now, I've already responded in my own community on the Facebook group to the initial queries based upon an East Anglian article, which, you know, didn't exactly cover the story because it's always go for the shock horror image. If we look at Appendix C and E on pages 42 and 44, I think you can see exactly how this can be, the education process can take place. Appendix C shows the bins. Refuse, garden, recycling, recycling green, recycling blue, and food. It shows you what goes in those bins. I don't know about you, but I have those on my wall with the old ones and the previous streams that we do. Try to make sure we wash all our plastic. And then on page 44, if I can just pull that down, you can see the cycle. Look at option C. That is in Appendix E, option C on the right-hand side, the 3 weekly collection. So the basic rule of thumb, as I've explained to my residents, is you're still going to have one bin collection a week. It'll be the same day every week, day or two later after public holidays. We all know how that operates, but we've got used to it over the years. You'll have a food waste collection every week. But it's only one day a week. That's all you have to remember. And obviously you look at your next door neighbour to see what colour that particular week might be, because, I mean, if I didn't see the blue bin or the black bin at the moment, I would probably pick the wrong bin. However, I can also tell which one's full. These cases, they'll be slightly less full. But there is your education programme. There is a very simple answer about how we tell people about this. It's not rocket science. As I say, I've seen it work in 2 local authority areas. I can see no reason. There are other advantages. The value of our paper waste and cardboard waste increases. The recycling proportions increase. Wet cardboard, which is what we have had in our current mixed stream, is not worth as much. So I think we should thoroughly support this, and I'm just suggesting there's your education programme.
Thank you, Councillor McCraw. Anyone else wish to debate? Councillor Rees and then Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Contrary to Councillor Saw's assertion that we do not care about recycling and waste disposal, I'm very, very concerned about waste disposal and recycling. I always understood that the priority was reduce, reuse, then recycle. But we seem to be very unusually that Councillor Saw and her colleagues have embraced wholeheartedly some conservative legislation, but it's one that I didn't embrace wholeheartedly on account of the obsession with collecting food waste. As far as I'm concerned, and most of the people in my parishes are concerned that I've spoken to, this idea that we should be contradictorily encouraging food waste by saying, yes, we'll recycle it by collecting it every week, whereas for residual waste, we say, oh, no, if we collect it more than once every 3 weeks, it'll encourage people to not recycle. There's a contradiction here. And the one that's most important is the abomination that is food waste. as an idea.
Thank. I never go beyond 3 minutes, unlike some people. Please, Madam Chairman. Yeah. Thank you anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, what's wrong with this paper that we are asked to endorse is, of course, we don't know how much, there's no guesses as to how much the food recycling is going to cost. That is the big vacancy. We might be told about this in November, but there's no reason why we should endorse this proposal now, because we don't know what's down the road. There are too many gaps in the costings, and we now know today, we could talk about the anaerobic digester. This was not brought up at the Cabinet meeting. It was mentioned in some of the discussion afterwards, but it was not part of the Cabinet briefing. Not that I recall. That was stop there, stop there. You are not entitled to interrupt me.
Members.
I apologise, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You should, we should not be interrupted. All right? Anyway, so there we are. So what we have here is a half-baked idea, half-baked costings, and we don't know where we are. And I, for one, am not minded to endorse this proposal because there are too many gaps. Thank you.
Now I'd like to do Councillor Ward, Councillor Busby, Councillor Hurren, and then come back to wrap up with the proposer, Councillor Saw. Okay? Councillor Busby? Did I say?
That's fine. Yeah.
Sorry.
I do feel it's a retrograde step. We're moving from collecting in a community to collecting individually. I mean, in Capel, we had a glass or bottle bank, we had paper bank, which was taken away because the value of paper had dropped, so it wasn't worth collecting it, which kind of is a bit perverse. We have a textile bank, and they all work. And I think it's strange that we're moving away from that to forcing people to do it individually. Just a point. Alistair, just be careful with pushing people saying that the collection day is the same day.
It is.
But not for brown bins, it isn't.
No, because that's a separate.
No, but if you say that collection day is the same day each week, we'll get confused. Pardon? This is this paper. Because I'm referring to page 44, Appendix E.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the matter of food waste is not the subject of this evening's paper. The food waste collection was debated and discussed and approved by Cabinet back in May. In that paper, we promised, or the government's promised us full new burdens funding for food waste collection, and that was also covered in that, and whether there might possibly be a shortfall in that. So really, we have no choice. We've got to collect food at the doorstep. We've got to collect bottles at the doorstep. These are mandated in the legislation. Legislation, as Councillor Rees said, was Conservative legislation passed by Boris Johnson's government 3 years ago. So we need to focus on what we're here to discuss this evening. And I think, I don't know if many of you get the East Anglian Daily Times, so I draw your attention. Last Thursday, there was an excellent opinion piece by the leader of East Suffolk Council, which clearly and comprehensively described exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. And really, Councillor Topping speaks on behalf of all of us in Suffolk, and as she said to me in a message the other day, we're all in this together, because we are. There's been a huge amount of work put into this over the past few years, which has been scrutinised by Suffolk public sector leaders, and the result is that the papers that have been presented to the various cabinets and councils in the county over the past few weeks, and they are evidence-based and thorough. We are responding to legislation, and we're providing a solution that fits all of our residents in Suffolk. The only controversial aspect, or aspect of concern, is, of course, the move to 3 weekly collections. Now, we know that the outgoing government made a populist statement about preferring 2 weekly rather than 3 weekly, but the whole point is, if you're recycling a lot more, there is no need for anything more than a 3 weekly residual collection. That the system will work. And we will certainly look at the results of that as we start to implement it, look at the evidence, and if we have to tweak it, we will tweak it. But the point is, we need to start off and to see how it works. So I see no reason why we shouldn't endorse the Cabinet decision this evening. This is an excellent paper, very comprehensive. We have costings as far as we know them so far, and there will be more that will have to come. But we're waiting for government for a lot of this information, particularly on the payments from the extended producer responsibility that is going to finance a lot of this. But we have to proceed on the basis of what's best for Suffolk as well as Babergh.
Councillor Ward. Now, Councillor Hurren, and then I'll move to Councillor Saw to wrap up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, I, for one, will be really pleased to endorse this, because this is one of the biggest things we do, isn't it? And it's one of the biggest things that the public see us do. I regard it as a moving feast, no pun intended, but we're always going to be looking at this, and it will need tweaks. So the sooner we, create this as a live paper and work on it, the better I will feel. I would remind councillors and the officers, if they're still listening, there are several anaerobic digesters in existence now, including one just on the edge of my ward. Now, sometimes to keep these going, if they have a purpose, there's not always available things. They have to buy in stuff. Sometimes in the one within my ward, they even import it from Essex. So maybe there's an opportunity for us to buy a bit of space or get a bit of space for free. It might help them and help us in times of surplus, or maybe we don't need to build one at all, which could be expensive, but I would think there'd be opportunities there. But yeah, in favour of the paper, we should all be endorsing it and working on it to make everything better. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hurren. Councillor Saw, would you like to conclude?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think I would heartily endorse Councillor Rees's cry of reduce, reuse and recycle. We do want to see more home composting. We do want to, by introducing this system, engage our residents in a discussion about minimising food waste. I totally agree, food waste is an abomination. In fact, I may use that phrase quite a lot. This doesn't exist in a vacuum all by itself. There are things that we need to do as regards public education. There are things that we need to do to engage with our residents. We want to engage with all our councillors in this room, across districts, our parish councillors. This should be a big dialogue, a big conversation. It's important. And I do recognise that people hate change. There have been many instances across the years where people have said, no, nobody will ever do that. Nobody will pay for shopping bags. Oh my God, nobody will ever do that. You know, give up smoking, don't smoke in public places, etc., etc. I'm sure we can all think of many different situations. But we have not had a change in our recycling policy for nearly 20 years. No, there has been progress. We need to take note of that, and we need to embrace it. Now, I do recognise that the proof of the pudding will be in the eating on this one. Well, it depends where you put the pudding, of course. But we are engaged in a process of engagement. There will be papers coming to council. The officers and myself will be available to any member who wants to ask questions. We're going to, there will be regular meetings of the Suffolk Waste Partnership, and we are all absolutely committed to getting this right. So I would commend to you that the recommendation for council that option C, the introduction of new twin-stream curbside recycling collection service and change to 3 weekly refuse collections in conjunction with weekly food waste collections be endorsed by council. That council notes that Cabinet has designated authority to the Director of Operations and Climate Change in consultation with the Cabinet member for People and Place and Finance to implement all the required service charges for changes for option C, acting individually and or collectively as required with partner Suffolk councils in delivering the contractual variations and procurements for planned delivery by April 2026. April 2026 seems a long way away, but it isn't. There are numerous decisions that have to be taken, and various tendering and procurement decisions that need to be taken. The Council notes that the Cabinet has agreed that the Director of Operations and Climate Change alongside officers monitor and then report to Cabinet the difference in cost in budget once the government funding arrangements, tender results, contractual variations and the resulting revisions to the Suffolk Waste Partnership Inter-Authority agreement have been established, and work to include this in the Council's 2025-26 budget. We are very conscious that this is a big decision. We are very conscious that our residents are exceptionally interested in them, and I can assure you that I have no intention of letting them down. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saw, and thank you very much, councillors. I'll now ask the Acting Head of Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, members. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Riley, may I take your vote?
I will abstain.
Thank you, members. That is 21 votes for and 5 abstentions. So that's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I now move to paper BC 2417, decisions taken by the Chief Executive under delegated powers in accordance with Part 2 of the Constitution.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. I suspect this will be a slightly briefer item. You will see from the papers that we have a situation in Glemsford Parish Council where there have been a number of resignations, as is common practice under the law in those circumstances, in order to make sure that the Parish Council is able to continue to function. It's our role as a district council to place, in this case, one of our councillors into Glemsford Parish Council. That's Councillor Holt, who has agreed to take on that role. That has happened outside of the meeting, but obviously it's my obligation to report such matters back to the meeting where such occurrences have happened. So the report is simply for your noting, but I believe we will need a mover and a seconder.
Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Parker, and can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Rees. The recommendation that Council notes the decision taken under delegated powers by the Chief Executive as detailed in Appendix A. Henriette.
Thank you, members. That vote is now in progress on your app.
Thank you.
Councillor Riley, may I take your vote? Approved. Thank you. Thank you, members. That's 26 votes for. That's carried.
Much. We now move to item 10, paper BC 2418, Localism Act 2011, extension of the appointment of independent persons. I would like to invite the monitoring officer to introduce this report, and when he's finished, could I have a proposer and a seconder? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. I'll keep this brief as the paper speaks for itself. In short, the council has independent persons to support code of conduct issues. The recommendations are to reappoint 3 of the existing independent persons for a further 2 years, to increase the value of their retainer, and to appoint 2 further people to provide additional resilience.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Busby, and a seconder, Councillor Ward. We'll now move to questions. Councillors can ask as many as they wish, however, they must be relevant to the subject under discussion and must be a question. Any questions? No? Wonderful. This is really good. We'll now move to debate. Again, you can only speak once and for only maximum of 3 minutes. Okay, speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say. I'll now ask the Acting Head of Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, members. That vote is now in progress. Councillor Riley. Thank you.
What's happened here?
Thank you, members. That's 24 votes for and 2 abstentions, so that's carried, Chair.
We now move to councillor appointments. The appointments are listed on the agenda. Are there any further changes to the appointments? Members are asked to agree the following appointments to Overview and Scrutiny Committee: Councillor Brian Riley replacing Councillor Michael Holt, and Councillor Ruth Henry replacing Councillor Laura Smith. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Rees. Can I have a seconder? I can't remember. Laura. Councillor Smith. Okay, and now I'll ask the Acting Head of Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, members. That vote is now in progress.
I need to abstain.
You abstain. Thank you. Councillor Maybury, may I take your vote, please? Thank you. Thank you, members. That is 25 votes for and 1 abstention, so that's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. I now move on to, and I've lost it. No, I haven't. Here we are. Members, you're being asked to consider the motion on notice received from Councillor Carter. Councillor Carter, would you like to move your motion?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm bringing this motion forward to you today to address the critical issue that I think weighs quite heavily on the community. So in Babergh, like in many parts of the country, we're witnessing firsthand the impact of a national crisis. The demand for affordable housing is at an all-time high. Too many families are struggling to find safe and stable homes. I think we're all very aware of the situation that's at hand. So we face capped incomes, rising underfunded demands, escalating costs that are crippling our budgets. So in the recent Suffolk report, a distressing reality was outlined that many councils, like ours, are teetering on the brink, unable to meet the need for new homes or maintain existing ones due to crippling financial restraints. As it says in the papers, the report calls for a comprehensive 5-point action plan, including urgent reforms to the housing revenue account and adjustments to unsustainable right-to-buy policies. So you might very well be asking, why haven't I just pursued this independently? But I firmly believe that this is not merely a cabinet decision. It's a collective one that demands the collaboration and support of the entire council, which is why I've asked for it to come forward to you today. So by all of us rallying behind this motion, we can unite to present a powerful appeal to the government, effectively conveying the urgent necessity for change. And by coming together to urge the new government, our local members of parliament and the Secretary of State to act swiftly on this critical matter. I think we all know just how essential it is that we work towards a sustainable future in council housing, guaranteeing that every resident in Babergh has access to a decent and affordable home. Thank you.
We'll now move to debate, because this is not a question and answer session, okay? Councillor Busby?
Well, I think we'd all probably share with the sentiment that's been put in this. I suggest we go straight to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Busby. But hold fire, just 2 seconds. I absolutely wholeheartedly support this. Thank you, Councillor. Just put some meat on the bones, Councillor Busby. So within Babergh, as we know, house prices are in excess of 10 times of the average earnings. I actually raised many of these points in this very chamber back in 2019, but it was just a little bit too early in its time. The fact of the matter is, house ownership, I think the dream of home ownership that has been the dream for the last couple of generations is dead. It's finished. It is impossible for our youth to get on the ladder. And when you're talking about professionals, police officers, firemen, nurses, finding it impossible to get onto that ladder, we have to assume that the pendulum has swung far too far in the other way. So I applaud this and 100% I support it. Thank you.
Councillor Derek Davis?
Yeah, I fully endorse it as well. The only thing that I would add is to make sure, and I totally agree with the letter, I agree with the Suffolk report, but the conference today, the Labour leader and his deputy both pledged that veterans would be housed. It's disgraceful that veterans are allowed to sleep on the streets, and it's important that they are housed. I appreciate the difficulties, you know, in Babergh and other places, but we need to hold the government's feet to the fire on this to make sure that that does happen. The rest, the council housing, it needs to be proper affordable housing, and when we do have the right to buy, and I totally agree with the right to buy, but the council should be allowed to use the money that comes from those receipts, albeit discounted, to be able to invest in affordable housing in our district. That's all I want to say.
Councillor Ward. Councillor Ward, Councillor Davis, Sally Davis, do you wish to speak? Do you wish also? So after Councillor Ward.
I totally support this, as being very close, obviously, in my role in Cabinet to the predicament of our housing revenue account as a result of successive government policies on housing rental income and the rents we can charge. We, like all councils, are in a very difficult situation, and we simply don't have the money to finance what we need to do to our council housing stock and at the same time increase that stock. And of course we are losing some, albeit not many in Babergh, to right to buy. Something does need to be done, and there has to be a way that housing revenue accounts are sustainable in the long term. And this isn't just a problem that's affecting local authorities now. Increasingly, other registered providers are suffering similar pressures on their ability to increase their stock. So unless government intervenes, we're not going to be able to increase or even maintain the social and affordable housing stock that we have. Thank you.
Very much. Councillor Sally Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree with this, because we have to take some sort of action to put pressure on government, because it's abundantly clear that present government plans to tackle the housing crisis are flawed. The notion that building more houses brings down the prices of those houses is simplistic. In Babergh, we've been delivering houses on and above targets, but still, as my colleague said earlier, the house prices, the average house price is 10 times the average annual wage in Babergh. House prices never come down. The volume house builders make sure they don't. So we have to have more social and community-led housing, and it has to be at the heart of any plan to tackle the housing crisis. I fear we in Babergh are going to be forced to build increasing number of houses that do little to actually help our residents who can't afford market housing, either rented or buying it. In 2022 to 23, 9,561 social houses were completed in England. That's a pitiful number. And now we are encountering already in Babergh problems, as Councillor Ward said, with registered providers being unable to take over affordable housing. And that's why we're convening a summit with those registered providers very soon to talk about how we can find ways through this problem. But we must put pressure on government, because what we've got so far on the table from this government is just simply not good enough.
Councillor Carter, Councillor Rees, you wish to debate?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, actually, I'd just like to, first of all, say that I'd like to have seen a little bit more detail on the difference between council housing and social housing, because they're not both always the same thing. So a little bit more detail in here. But Councillor Davis's reference to community-led housing, yes, community-led housing is something that I'd have liked to have seen specifically mentioned here as well. Community-led housing and community land trusts, such as those already in Lavenham. But thank you.
Anyone else wish to add to the debate, or can I ask Councillor Carter if she wishes to wrap up her motion? Councillor Carter, to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for hearing it, and thank you very much for your extra points. I think they're all very valid. I think that now is definitely time to do it, and as I said earlier, I think if done collectively, it will have more of an impact than just coming from a whinging cabinet member. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll now ask the Acting Head of Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, members. That vote is now in progress. Sorry, Councillor Riley. Abstain. Abstain, thank you. Thank you, members. That is 23 votes for and 2 abstentions. So that's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. The next meeting is on Tuesday, 29th of October at 5:30 p.m. and at 19:32 I'm closing this meeting. Thank you very much.